Very special episode of Late Night Parents. This is Ted Hicks. You can follow the show, latenightparents.com. I have the pleasure of having Danny Thompson in the queue, live as always. Danny, what's new?
I mean, as you can tell, just doing some remodeling at home. We just bought the piano in a couple days ago. Finished up the fireplace, and spending those hard-earned coins that you make. I don't know, the hard-earned coins you make on things that you don't need.
Yes. The most important thing, and I've said this to you privately, and I'll say it to you publicly, as long as you get yourself one good thing a year that you wouldn't usually purchase yourself because you're taking care of everyone else. So I would suggest one item per year that will definitely put a smile on your face.
I mean, I just got budgeted, first lady. I have the first kid and the first mother all in the same house, and the first rabbit. So once they all get taken care of, then we can do that.
It's true. All right. So tonight's episode is The People We Meet. And I don't know. Sometimes I pick episode names way in advance, and I kind of wait for the moment to pick that episode. But a lot of stuff going on with our athletes that give us all the content that we would ever need. We don't actually have to generate anything. All we have to do is open up Twitter and just wait for the shenanigans to start.
Yes, I mean it's been a weird week. It's never ending. Sometimes I get what you're saying though.
So I guess out the gate, let's talk about Brandon Miller.
Let's go.
What's your take? What's your feel on another young collegiate athlete put into a funny predicament? And then the fact that he can run, jump, dunk a ball, hit a home run, throw a touchdown, or run it in, kind of allows him to skirt the situation. Before you answer, I just want to say what's up to Tony D and to Leggy Lady. Helen Wells.
All right. So really, it's one of the most weirdest situations I've seen an athlete, get into, especially a college athlete. When you have a capital murder case and you have not only a capital murder case, but you have it involving a guy that's literally going to be drafted in the top 5 in the NBA draft in his only season in college basketball, involving a former teammate who was on the roster, who was now kicked off the team. And it's involving a text message where the person involved in the shooting, the person who actually pulled the trigger, asked the Brandon Miller to bring the gun to him, a loaded gun. And he ended up, I mean, they couldn't charge Brandon Miller for the entire, for that because he didn't bring the gun allegedly, but he was on his way to pick up the shooter. But it just so happened that it literally happens as, it's the decision making. You're really literally 3 months away, Ted. It's March.
Yes.
This incident happened earlier in the year, I think late part of last year, first part of this year. And Ted, you're literally months away from being able to start the ability to have not only wealth for yourself, but you can also take care of your loved ones. And if you have kids, you can start taking care of the legacy that you leave behind. And, Ted, we're in different age brackets, but, I know how the 1800s is a little bit different than it is now. But you look at the decision making. We've all made decisions that were not exactly the smartest decisions, but to literally talk about bringing a loaded gun, and now, mind you, didn't know what the situation was, whether you're going to shoot the person, but now that gun's involved in a capital murder case. And the ability for Alabama to still let him play through all this. Now, the district attorney said that he was not Brandon couldn't be charged. They had nothing to charge him with because they had no evidence to arrest him. But the simple fact of Alabama's response to this was just horrible.
It was.
Nate Oates really has shown, and I'm sorry I hate to say this, but Nate Oates has shown that it's not about the person. He cares about winning. It's not about the person involved in this.
It never is.
Danny,
if I can just jump in, as long as you have as long as you're an athlete, and as long as you're providing that organization, whether it's an institution, as long as they're able to make money off of you, not discussing NIL or anything else like that, but as long as they're able to make money off of you, that's all that matters. Same things with our professional teams when we see our role models struggle with stuff. But go ahead. I just wanted to mention that.
I mean, it's just the fact of you can tell that Nate Oates, Alabama's never won a national championship in basketball, and this is their best chance to win it. Take away the loss today, they still have an outstanding chance of winning winning their first national championship this year. Not only the response to it after the fact, and then he continued to play in his first game back, the TSA check down and pat down, like it's completely no idea of how bad the situation is. You're really doing a pat down after you shouldn't be playing. The case comes out, he's playing the same night against South Carolina. He should have been away from the team until they got this whole situation figured out, national championship or not. And really, if you're a parent, and like we said, we're both parents, you're looking at that saying, my kid's just a number. Could you imagine if that kid Brandon Miller would have been a guy who was the 12th man, a walk-on the roster, would he have been doing the same thing for him? No, because the other kid was already off the team anyway.
Right.
It's a terribly sad situation. It makes everybody look bad. It makes Brandon Miller, and even Ted talking to draft scouts, his stock's not being affected. He's literally still going to be a top 5 pick in June. It just really depends on which team is willing to. They don't. They literally, this kid should not be playing. This kid should have had everything taken care of and then get back on the court if there's enough time. But it's about winning. And it just ironically just happened to be Alabama process as well, too, because we all know Nick Saban and stuff that he does indiscretion-wise. So it is what it is.
I guess in a week or so, we can have you come back and we could talk March Madness and the like. Hey, before I get too deep into this and we go into the next topic, where can we find your writings? Where can we find stuff that you talk about? Let's plug it early. Let's plug it.
We're doing it early. I do have a Substack, so it is called The Wonderful World of Data. It's a project I decided to start with the help of a person on this screen that you see. It's not myself. It's a data project. It's really going into an in-depth part of data analysis in the NBA and basketball that I really don't get a chance to see, because when you look at data analysis and you look at data itself, there's two types of people. There are people who love it and the people who hate it. And the people who hate it a lot of times don't understand it. If the people who love it, they'll understand why the people who hate it, they really hate it. So for myself, as someone that I'm a basketball person that knows how to do data, I want to be able to provide a kind of a median for those who don't understand sports and how the importance of data is in the NBA. Because data is a very good way of evaluating talent, but at the same time, it's not the only way. It's kind of a bridge work. So I've had a couple articles on there, working on one now. You'll see different type of flow charts. You'll see different shot charts. You'll see how it's broken down and how it means to a player. I think the last one I did was on the all NBA defensive team of guys that you wouldn't even think about was good defensively. Highlighting guys such as Zach LaVine and Steven Adams, Tobias Harris of the Sixers, and a few other guys, Ja Morant as well. So among other guys, I've talked about Kevin Love. I've talked about efficiency and scores, and I'm always looking for new content. And I do have social media. You'll see my name on there, Danny DANY number 3 times on Twitter, and I'm always around. You'll never know where I pop up here, there, everywhere. So not a hard person to find.
Got it. Thank you. Really quick, want to go into the craziness with John Morant. I mean, I guess this has just been brewing. Because we've been hearing stories and certain things that have been happening, and we're finally now, I guess, at that intersection of, okay, this person who has all this talent, could he lose it all?
This is really, I mean, it's a scary situation. Like, I don't want to say it's Gilbert Arenas vibes, but it potentially could be. This could be a bad situation. Ja Morant is literally Ted's on his way to become not only one of the most popular players in the NBA, but he also has a connection with a certain part of the NBA fan base. The hip hop fan base. The urban fan base. He has a very strong connection with them.
Right.
Because of his demeanor, his play, his ability to know the trends and fashions and everything in between. And in the last 2 weeks, it's really been like just a myriad of things coming out about Ja and his indiscretions on the court, off the court, not on the court. It's everything off the court. We should be talking about his new shoe that's about to drop. The Ja Morant ones I think they're either coming out this week or they're just already released. And he is a signature athlete of Nike with his own signature shoe. And Ted, we're talking about this off air. He's the guy that's going to be replacing Kyrie Irving essentially as that next face of Nike in the
Right.
backcourt, in the guard
Right.
aspect. And now we have the incident with his mother and an employee at a finish line where they got into it. She called Ja. Ja comes to the mall with 9 other people and was looking to see the 17-year-old kid in the parking lot. This is per the Washington Post. That was earlier in the week. And then this morning, as we're all sleeping for the most part, except for the West Coast, or you're just up early like Ted is, getting the sampler, and you go on to Instagram and he's at a club flashing a gun at 5 o'clock in the morning. Well, it's a very dangerous situation because in the culture of Memphis, if you're not from Memphis or don't know anything about Memphis, Memphis is not exactly the easiest city to live in. It's one of the roughest cities in the United States. And, there's a reason why the Grizzlies are the Grizzlies team name has always been Grit and Grind. The Grit and Grind Grizzlies. That's what they've always been about. Going back to the days of Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol and Tony Allen. It's a really it's a beautiful city. On top of that, it's very, it's just very industrial. It's a very urbanized city. And it just looks like Josh falling into the wrong crowd and continue to be in that wrong crowd and trying to maintain that lifestyle that, that's part of the hip hop culture in the NBA, and off the court. And flashing a gun ain't the smartest thing idea, especially when you have a case with, a case with the finish line incident. You already have other things that happen off the court, and it's sad at this point, but it ended up he got suspended. He's actually gone for at least the next 2 games, and he issued a statement today apologizing. And like I said earlier, the same way with Brandon Miller, he's a kid. Ja's 23, 24 years old. We're going to make mistakes. Just hopefully that he learns from these mistakes, because that's a big shoe contract. That's a huge contract with the Grizzlies. You're their franchise player. You're the reason why. No offense to the other 12 guys in that roster. You're the reason why people watch Memphis Grizzlies games, and you're one of the most popular players in the league. You got to fix all that, and you got to get it together. So hopefully, this next few days, 5, 6, 7 days away from the team, that he will figure this out quickly.
A lot of times people would say, where's the father? Where's the guidance? But we see the father at the games.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were able to have a conversation, Danny, with John Morant's father, like, what would be some of the things that you would say?
I think honestly, you know, it's like Team. I think from what I guess I don't know Team Morant personally, have not come across him. I'm not even sure his complete background, so I'm not going to speculate it. From one father to the next, I know that as a father, I would look at it from my perspective. You know, I'm sure that T has told Ja what he's doing is completely off center. Like, you know, I'm pretty sure they've had those conversations, and I'm pretty sure that he is probably in Ja's ears more than we think. You know, I don't think that it's one of those situations where he's dropping the ball here, and I'm looking for the positive more than the negative. I'm speaking positivity into another black father, just like myself. I'm sure that he's trying to give Ja as much guidance as possible, but the problem is you can't be around your kid 24/7. You can't. Unless you're living with him and sleeping in the same house and sleeping in the other room, you're not with Ja 24/7. It's really the decision making and the people he's keeping around him when his dad's not around or his mom's not around. It's the handlers, it's the friends, it's the people that he associates with. I mean, we just had an incident.
And Danny, if I could just interject there, there's going to be certain decisions that are going to be made on the fly. That I understand. But when you see a specific crowd around the person, that's what I would question. That's what I
Yeah,
would
I
be
mean,
like, okay, you know what? Hey, son, come here. I want to talk about, and chances are he's at the age where the father could probably give some insight, and he says, all right, dad, you know what? Thanks.
mhm.
We don't
I mean,
know.
Ted.
We don't know.
I mean, Ted. If you think of John's entourage, we had an incident they had an incident with the Indiana Pacers a couple months ago,
Right.
where supposedly somebody had an infrared on their gun and it was pointing
Right.
inside the Pacers bus. That was from
Right.
John's entourage. You know,
Yes.
yeah, we saw T. Morant get into it earlier in the year with Shannon Sharp, which was pretty comical. But they were cool afterwards. But
They,
I don't
they, they
think
cleaned
that,
it up really quick.
yeah, quickly. And I really think that I don't think T. Morant is putting Ja in that situation. I wouldn't believe he would. And sometimes, Ted, when you're a 24-year-old kid, a $200 million contract, you have an 8-figure deal from Nike, you have your own signature shoe,
Mm-hmm.
and you are, don't want to say it, you're the king of Memphis. You are
Yes.
the biggest person in the block. You feel like sometimes you're invincible, but you're not. Athletes aren't invincible. They're not. You know, it just takes
No, they're not.
one slip.
They're not. And the thing is, and you and I were talking in pre-pro that, because a lot of people like to put that stereotype out there that, he's in the hood, but learning from you, he wasn't a kid from the hood, or was he?
I mean, a lot of the background. I think he went to a private school. He had both of his parents. They grew up in South Carolina. John didn't have the big offers, so he always had the chip on his shoulder. So it wasn't like he had an extensive background. I'm just going to say comparable to a guy who he has a lot of similarities to, which is Allen Iverson.
Right.
He didn't have Iverson's background coming into the NBA. And one thing John's got to understand is that if you look at anybody who has been through it and has seen it from top to bottom, from back to forth, it is Allen Iverson. I think Iverson's a guy that you have to really, at the end of the day, look at what happened to Allen. I mean, it's as quickly as it comes, as quickly as it goes.
So
I
like
think
in the NFL, there's like the Tony Dungy. There's like the Oracle where, hey, if there's an issue, Tony Dungy gets involved, and then he's working with the league and working with the Players Association and trying to come to some common ground. Who is that member, I guess, in the league or league office that
um,
could be used as like that symbol to reach out to some of these players?
you know what? A guy that has that type of pull in the league office, you know, I'm gonna have to think about that one. I really have to do because you look at the Player Association, it's mostly younger guys. Chris Paul is the president,
Right.
but the vice president I think is Grant Williams. the Celtics, who is right around the same age as Ja, the same age range as Ja. But to be honest with you, in the league, I mean, you have a lot of guys that have played in the NBA. I think a
Hmm.
lot of the guys will speak for Ja, but they're speaking to Ja to change your circle. I saw Matt
Right.
Barnes speaking about this to Rachel Nichols the other day on their show. I think their show on Showtime, and he was saying, "Listen, you, me, and Steven Jackson is referring to have done the things that you do, and you know you can't do those things." DeMarcus Cousins said today, "The Grizzlies, you need veteran leaders." The
Right.
Grizzlies are one of the youngest teams in the league. Their elder statesman is Steven Adams, who I think just turned 30. There are no veterans in that locker. No offense. There's no super league like long tooth veterans. If Udonis Haslam is in that locker room, that's not happening.
Right.
OD, UD, OD is not going to fall. It's not going for that. Udonis ain't going for that, no matter what
Yeah.
the situation is. This is the problem when you have a lot of young teams. You don't have the veteran mentors. You need somebody to be able to take Ja's side. Like, listen, man, you're not doing this. You're not doing it right. There's no veteran coaches on the staff that have been 12 and 15, 16-year pros that can probably relate to some of the things Ja's going through. I think that if the Grizzlies would add DeMarcus Cousins, for example, knowing what DeMarcus has been through, being an all-star, being an elite player, being a guy with a bad reputation, a bad set baggage, he'd be great there. There are plenty of guys in this league that can take him under the wing. But Ted, the thing is, this old saying, you can lead a horse to water,
It's
but
true.
you can't make him drink.
It's
And
true.
Ja's going to need to take us a couple of days and be able to drink some of the water people that really care about him want to take.
I think I told you in jest earlier. I would go get. I don't know how many are in his circle that are not making the right decisions. Bag of money for each of them. Here you go. God bless you. That's it. You're done.
I mean, at some point, you're going to have to, one of the things I've learned as I gotten older is the ability to elevate. And as you elevate to different parts of your life, and as you move forward, and as you grow as a person, one of the things is, I would say, once your circle changes, as you get to a different point, your circle should change. Sometimes it leaves out people that shouldn't have been there or people that had to be there for a season. I think it's time for Ja to, at this point, look at the circle he has and make some serious changes. If that makes you not a dude that's completely the most street dude possible, it is what it is. It really is what it is. You got to be able to have that balance because it just takes one. It takes one instant, whether it's him involving him or somebody in the entourage. One instant can tear down everything you have built from the time you started dribbling the basketball at 2, 3 years old. One mistake, one bad idea can just take away everything. And and Ted, if you don't look at basketball, for example, look at Michael Vick. He made a decision. You
Yes.
know, he made a decision and ended up in jail. And that's why
Yep.
I said athletes are not bulletproof. Michael Vick went to jail in the height of literally being the Nike $100 million man, cover of
Yep.
Madden, basically the end all be all in the city of Atlanta with a franchise on your shoulders, and they sent him to jail in the middle of his career. It just takes one. It just takes one. And I just said I don't think it's mismanagement from T Morant. Like I said, just being from one father to another one. I don't think it's that. I just think it's the circle he's around. I think it's the people just telling everything he wants to hear. And a lot of times you're just trying to fit into a culture. Just think about it, Ted. You know how hard it is. People think it's easy when you have a lot of money. People think it's easy when you have this talent. But the NBA lifestyle is putting yourself sometimes in situations, I've seen it before, that are not exactly the easy situations. And a lot of times guys just fall in line to be in line instead of making their own path.
Hey, two quick items. Well, one quick item, and we can chew on this next topic for a couple of minutes. Cyril Gunn against John Bones Jones. Who wins? What's your prediction? And in what round?
Man, I want to see John Jones win tonight. But Drake put $500,000 on John Jones tonight. I'm not sure if John Jones is going to win. Every time Drake puts money on something, they somehow lose.
There's that Drake curse.
Yes, it's almost bad as the Madden curse. As Jake Paul, it happened to him last week. I saw Jones at the weigh-in. He looked incredibly for a guy that's put on that type of weight. He looked really good for that size. But I would hope that he would take a tune-up fight before getting into a situation like this, because Gagne is a puncher. He's a big guy who can punch.
But he's not a wrestler. He's not a wrestler.
I know, but Ted,
ground and pound.
People say John was 230 fighting at light heavyweight on the day of fights after he cut weight to get to 205. Some people say he was fighting at 230. Ted, he's fighting at literally 247 tonight. I think he was at the weigh-in. I think if Jones is light on his feet, if he's light on his feet in the first 2 to 3 minutes of round one, and we can see that spry John Jones at that weight that he's at now, Gagne's done in the second round. He's done in the second round. But if I don't see the same John Jones in the first round or so, and Gagne starts getting shots on John, that's the thing. If he hits John Jones, and he hits John Jones consistently, and this fight gets past, I'd say, the second round, I think Gagne wins this thing and walks out to the heavyweight championship, and Dana White's looking at everybody confused as hell.
John Jones, Johnny Bones Jones should be 27-0 right now, right? I'll leave that there.
I mean, listen,
really
he's the greatest mixed martial artist of all time.
Of all time, the GOAT.
Of all time. No matter the weight class, no matter what it is, he's the greatest of all time.
The high stakes of World of Sports Insiders, Danny. Mount Rushmore is.
Looking at Woj, Shams, Jake Glazer, Adam Schefter. See, I mean, you can put those four on there, right? And I think the only one I honestly will say that, of course, we look at the four, the Mount Rushmore of the four. You're not moving Woj, and you're not moving Shams. Like those two are literally everything. I think Schefter has taken a hit over the last couple of years with all the misinformation on Aaron Rodgers. His missing on Aaron Rodgers is looking bad. It's almost as bad as watching Tony Gwynn try to hit Greg Maddux. He can't figure it out. And the only one I would question being on this four would be Jake Glazer. Glazer is an amazing insider. I will not take that away. But there are other insiders in other sports that are on the same level, I think, as Woj and Shams or Schefter in other sports that I can see on this list just as much as Drake Glazer. I think John Heyman of MLB.com, EJ Heradic of ESPN. There is a few others that are just about as big, if not faster than Jake Glazer. But if he's on the list, I get it. I understand.
I'm waiting for you to shout out our guy Chris Haynes.
I am. I mean, you could. But there's a bunch of guys. Like I said, I just mentioned the two from the other sports. Because I say you only got two sports represented. I think Chris Haynes is elite. Chris Haynes is a max insider. If we're talking the world of max players in the insider game, he's a max player. I think there's maybe 8 or 9. I think about 7, 8, or 9 insiders among all sports who are, I consider, max insiders. And I think Chris Haynes is definitely one of them. And if he was, like I say, if he replaced Jake Glazer, I can understand it.
Okay. Do we have a hockey insider?
I think EJ Heradic of ESPN NHL Network. I think he's literally the top story breaker for me. I think it's one of the guys I have on my list. I keep plugged in on a regular. Ironically, a guy that's been breaking a lot of stories, Ted's former player Kevin Weeks, the former Ranger and Hurricane goaltender, is breaking a lot of these news before everybody else. And I mean, he's a former player, so I mean, big shout out to him. But yeah, but I follow EJ Radic all the time. He's literally one of the guys that's
And
on my.
let's get into women's basketball. Who's your
Christina Williams?
Hmm?
Christina Williams. Christina Williams. Girl Talk Sports. She might be literally between her and Josina Anderson, 1A and 1B when it comes to story breakers, insiders in the women's side of everything. I think just women in general, and ironically because it's Black History, it's
Women's
Black Women's
International
Month.
Month?
Yes, I think those two women, Christina Williams, Josina Anderson, are 1A and 1B. But when it comes to women's basketball, it's Christina Williams 1. I can't remember. Rachel Gallagher, I think Rachel Gallagher, if I pronounced her last name right, from Winsider, and Howard Bengal of the W. Those are the top three. But yeah, Christina Williams is the elite one of the group. Easy.
No comments on Ian Rappaport? You're not a big Ian Rappaport fan?
No, I follow Ian. I guess he's on my list. I guess he's on my list of people that I would consider that type of level.
But is it kind of warped because he's NFL media?
No. I think here's the thing. You still, to be an insider, you still have to have insight and intel. Everybody's insight and intel is different. You look at, for example, Woj and Shams. A lot of times, Woj information comes from organizations. A lot of times, Shams stuff comes from players and general managers and those things. So I think it was a great article. Ted, I think it was Ethan Strauss that wrote about that.
Yes.
He broke down the insiders and where a lot of the information comes from. So I think when it comes to how information is received, it's different. You look at Josina Anderson, for example. A lot of her information comes from former players, from current players or people that are associated with players. She has a lot of contacts in there. It might be different contacts to Adam Schefter, who pretty much is probably, since he's through ESPN, is probably connected to every GM in the league, but a few players on the back end. The few of the higher name quarterbacks probably. I wouldn't see Lamar Jackson handing it over to Schefter first. Let's just say that.
Never.
Mm-mm.
Never.
So I think every person has their own way of getting information. I'm just glad I didn't pick that lifestyle. I thought about it at one point, couldn't do it.
I don't see how it's healthy. You're on your phone.
There's no
all day, all night.
I bet you, if you look at Woj's PTO time at ESPN, I bet he has so much PTO on the backlog that they just have to pay him out at the end of the year.
Yeah,
because there's no vacation time, none.
There's none
because the NBA always has something going on.
The one great thing I will say about the NBA and my rekindled love with the NBA is the way they scooped the NFL during the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah,
Kevin Durant trade.
In the ironic thing was it happened in Phoenix. Of all places,
Phoenix. It was awesome.
I had friends that covered the Super Bowl and some outstanding journalists that were out in Phoenix. They were saying that because they were literally talking Durant all through Media Row. They were talking at parties all around, all around the area because it was that big of a trade. The NBA has found ways to one up the NFL at all times. So I love it.
Yeah. All right. We're going to stop there because we've got a hard stop at 35 minutes. If you can run through again ways we can find you on your Substack, ways we can subscribe to it, and is there going to be a paywall?
First, you can find my Substack on at substack.com, which is called The Wonderful of the Data. So please check it out there. It's a free subscription service. Please subscribe to it now while it's free. That's the best part. Subscribe to it while it's free. Because it gets to the point I put it behind a paywall, then guess what? I'll grandfather you in. But at this point, no. It's still a free Substack. There's a lot of information out there. Like I said, it's still a growing site, so take advantage while it's free. I do drop articles on my Twitter page all the time, which is Danny DANNY 3 times on Twitter. Follow work at the3pointconversion.com. Ted, we actually have a March Madness Wrestling edition starting this week.
Oh, okay.
So I have a group myself and 3 other writers, we all have our own regions of 16 wrestlers, and we'll be going over matchups to find out who is the greatest wrestler between the major factions, WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling. We sprinkled a little bit of New Japan in there as well. And so all the all of them, some current, some past, some yesterday. So we have a good mix of everything. So we can't wait for those matchups to come out. And like I said, I'll be back on for March Madness and whatever breaking news happens.
All right. And we're out.